I'm speaking with Mike Powell, who's a senior sales engineer over at Corero, and he's about to show Corero's network and DDoS protection platform. Why don't you show us?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're taking a look at is what we call a Corero CMS. It's a web interface. It's kind of the home base, kind of the orchestrator of everything on the Corero solution. So what we have a demo environment. I'm going to send a couple of attacks, and what I really want to show you is the automated nature of the Corero protection. In fact, I've just started an attack, and while we were talking, we already have mitigation you can start seeing. And I'll explain that here in a second, but it's automated and it doesn't require user intervention. You're not having to come in and turn this on, turn that off. It's just easy protection, and you just let it do its thing.
And let me just point out to everyone watching that we have three columns here. The one in the left, which has the blue graph, that's detection. The one in the middle is protection, and then remote mitigation. And the key thing also to watch is this sort of red and green, and it's hard to see the green because it's so darn tiny in that middle column, but the red is the blocked area and the green is what the allowed good traffic. And, there are sort of telltale signs, fingerprints, that allows you to tell what is blocked. And I think you were mentioning that earlier.
Yep, absolutely. So in this case, I was just sending a little send flood. We have some mechanisms to detect improper behavior, not following the TCP protocol. And what's cool about the system is it was able to see, okay, I got a send flood to an IP, and it redirected that IP to go through our scrubbing appliance, because we can block on the scrubber. We can block on a router. In this case, I have a Juniper router in the environment. And so it's going to automatically choose what is the best mitigation methodology for that particular attack, right? So, of course, send flood, we need to do some behavioral analysis. So we send it through protected scrubbing.
Okay.
In this case, the main rule that is firing is a TCP session establishment rule. The source IP is not sending any data. So there's no ACKs, no push ACKs coming from the source IPs. It's just all, send, reset, all of that kind of stuff, control messages. So we're just going to block that, and we're doing that by redirecting through the scrubber.
All right.
So we did a flow spec redirect, and so as the traffic hits the interface on the router, it just gets sent to the scrubber and then on into the network. So I've shown you scrubbing protection. I want to show you router protection. So in this case, I have a window here. I have a virtual Juniper router running. So I'm just going to show you what the ephemeral instance looks like. So what that is, that's actually a config that sits on top of the normal config on a Juniper router. And it allows you to make changes while it's running without having to do a commit, right? So it's very similar to a BGP route or a flow spec route, but it actually allows us to do flexible firewall filters.
So give me an example of what you would use that for.
Yeah, so in this case, we're going to block a DNS reflection attack. So this is going to be a DDoS attack. It's coming from DNS servers all over the world. It's typically responses that were to original request that were recursion desired, type equals any, a few other DNS things. But what's beautiful about the Juniper kind of router blocking is we can do payload. So now when I look at this instance, I can see I have firewall terms, and we're looking, this is the IP under attack, 172.27.35.10. And what this equates to is we're blocking that DNS reflection. We're not just blocking all source port 53 or even just all small source port 53 or large source port 53 to a destination. We can actually get into the payload and block very specifically the DNS reflection attack, but still allow all normal DNS to flow through. And we can do that on the router. And that's why you see now on the right-hand side, we've got our send flood still running here going over the scrubber. But now on the router, we're starting to get blocks. And I'll change that. Let's go to packets per second, kind of go back and forth. But now you can see we have blocked traffic on the router itself. All right. And so we're actually blocking that DNS reflective attack. All right.
On the router before it gets within the network itself. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point, is that we can block that right at the edge. So the beautiful thing is with the edge type of protection is if you have a terabit of internet access coming into, all different sites across the world, but your edge is a terabit, with like router blocking, you have a terabit of DDoS protection, right? So whatever your internet edge is, whatever your direct internet access is, you can block that much DDoS, right? We have some customers who have 10 terabits of internet, and they've got routers all over the world. DDoS comes in, they can block up to a 10 terabit DDoS instantly. So that's the beauty of the system. It's automated. It'll choose the best mitigation for the attack, and you just kind of sit back and relax.
And have you found, because I was talking to your colleague, that what has changed over the past number of years in DDoS, and he just said just a lot more, really 10x across the board, 10x in terms of traffic, 10x in terms of the target, 10x in the variability. So have you found that Corero is either having a hard time keeping up with it, or it's not a hard time? I mean, even if it goes to 20x, it can deal with it. Like, how are you staying ahead of the game here, I guess is my question.
So the two ways. The beauty is with the router blocking, it's the capability of the router. So as the routers improve, our blocking keeps up with that because it's done with the muscle of the router. So that's one way. The second way is we've just released what we call a NTD 3400. It is a 400 gigabit connected scrubbing appliance, and it actually has 2 ports on it. So in one RU, so one rack unit, we can actually do 800 gigabit of DDoS mitigation. So, you do 2 RUs now, and all of a sudden you got 1.6 terabit of DDoS mitigation. So very dense, very low power, right? And very high performance. So as we move to the 400 gigabit connectivity, we're keeping up with that. Like you mentioned, the big thing we see, like even all over the world, but even like kind of Latin America, we've seen some attacks hit the billion packets per second. And so it's not just the bandwidth anymore, it's the packets per second that they're sending with these attacks. You need a lot of performance, right? You need to be able to handle millions of packets per second on your devices. And that's what we're doing. We have the best performance in the industry, and we're keeping up with these attacks.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for showing this. Is there any last thing you want to show off here?
I just would want to leave everybody listening with just the ease of use and owning Corero solution. When you're set up, a lot of our customers, they'll say, I don't have to log into the system, maybe 2-3 months. They'll go without having to log into the system. They just let it do its protection. They get the reports, email or Slack, whatever kind of webhook, and they just let it do its thing. So that's the beauty of the system, is it's very hands-off, low operation burden.
Very good. It appears to me that Corero is a great solution for any kind of resiliency plan that you're trying to build, because some type of DDoS protection is critical now for resiliency. Thank you so much for showing this to us, Mike. If anyone wants to check out the cool DDoS tools, go to Corero.com. The web address is right there. Go check them out.